It's Steve Riley, aka Biz here in the golden witch, the VOIDGAZERS. Follow me into the void, not typically avoid feelings that you're paranoid, making you into a droid to bury. We carry all your memories and remix your ancestors. Past the future, have the melt in your mouth texture.
Cheese, bread, take your head. Just rush the bed, dodge the feds. A virus spreads, you're not safe, so take the pill. Everyone can see you on the hill, so come into the void.
Riley, if somebody asked you what race you were, what would be like the first answer that would come to your mind?
Oh, black.
Yeah?
Black.
Before white?
Yeah, fuck white people.
Before whatever actual, like, you have some kind of Asian mix?
Yeah, like, so I'm real muddy. We got Native American, like European, like strong, like British European, I think. Japanese, a couple generations ago. But I was raised by black people. Like, I went into foster care when I was 7, 6, 7. And then got out of foster care when I was 13. And then went and lived with my dad for 2 or 3 years before I lived on my own. So, like, the amount of time I spent with white people, like 8 years. The amount of time I remember spending with white people, like 2 years.
Right.
Like, it's not... So it's like, that explains a lot about me. I feel like when people find out, like, oh, you were adopted by black people in Arkansas, that makes sense. Like, people can kind of like, oh, I get why you're a Wigger.
Right.
Like,
I've always struggled with, like, the fact that I don't feel connected to, like, anything racially or, like, culturally, because, like, I didn't know, like, growing up through high school, I'd have people be like, oh, I'm 1/15th Cherokee, and I'm like a 4th Irish, or like whatever thing they had, they cared about a lot. If any member of their family had like really been like, oh yeah, like my grandma like makes Irish cuisine, you know, or something like that, then it's like they feel like, ooh, I have like some ownership over this Irishness, you know, even though they're just like an American living in Virginia, you know, with no experience of Ireland whatsoever beyond what their grandma happens to know. But like, I didn't have anything like that, because like my grandma on my dad's side eventually did like a deep dive into our whole lineage, and we found out that it was basically like as British American as you could get. Like, we came over on the first boats, basically, on both sides of the family. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just white.
Right.
There's no better description. American white. Like,
that's your bloodline.
Not even like,
no, I'm just a white
I can't
person.
even say like, oh, like I'm British white, because even that is so far back at this point.
Sure.
That like it's just American. It's just a bunch of people in America, you know, going back like 200-300 years, with the exception of my dad's grandparents, who were Russian Jews who fled during World War II to America. So that's like, there is some Jewish heritage, but my dad was like adopted and baptized by a Christian as a child, you know, like he has no connection to Jewish
the culture
heritage.
cut off.
Like, there was a period where me and Vic were like called Jews at school, because that was, you know, like, if somebody has to be the Jew. Right. Victor has really curly hair. It's easy for him to be the Jew, and he loves like a lot of
very
Jewish
South Park
movies.
Era,
and
like somebody's gotta be like the fucking Jew.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he was big into Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, so he was like real into. He connects to the Jew guilt.
New York sense of humor.
Yeah, he also likes fucking what's his name's movies.
Adam Sandler.
No, the guy who
Andy Samberg.
The guy with the who like married his like daughter or whatever, stepdaughter, Woody Allen.
Oh yeah, that one.
There was like this idea that like we were like part Jew. Right. I feel no connection to that anymore. It was basically just something that happened in high school because kids wanted somebody to be a Jew that they could call a Jew. Sure. You know, I went to so many different schools and so many different like you know, culture mixes that for me, like, it's like you said, it's easier to identify with black people, I think, because they have a more like identifiable culture than white people in America, where like, I guess, I mean, out in the
I could identify
Midwest,
as a
like,
golfer, like, you know, I just don't.
My idea of what I would consider to be like American culture would be Midwestern culture, which is not necessarily white. It is white in some places, but it's the same culture in other places without being white, you know? So like,
well, pure Western culture also. In blood, my family comes from like cowboys and shit. My great uncle Tom Mix was one of the first silver screen cowboy actors. So when I was with my family, I was raised heavily to be into like Western culture and the 1800s and like the idea of
The rifleman.
like the rifleman and manifest destiny values, shit like that. Like go outside and build your house where you want it to be, and you can live there. Like my dad did that. My dad's dad had a company where he built houses, and the last house he built was the one that he liked the most. Like that's why he stopped building houses. He's like, oh, I like this one, I'm gonna live here.
Yeah, good reason.
And it's like, that's sort of where my dad's side of the family's mentality comes from, is that like wild Western sensibilities. That's one of the few things that white people get to have, is like, oh yeah, it'd be like cowboy poetry and country music and shit like that. But that's kind of like bordering on racist these days. If you're a Southerner or something.
Just like having a Southern accent probably triggers
People
some people.
it triggers racists.
Right.
White, yuppie, liberal wasps who think that they're better than other people, and who think that like living in Syracuse makes it so that you understand how like the Mississippi population behaves. Like you'll never understand like how the Deep South works.
No, it's very different. A town where you're not going to run into more than like a couple people on an average day.
Yeah.
You know, like I think about if you were to like go out shopping or something in Virginia Beach, like go to Barnes and Noble. Like there's gonna be like 50 people at the Barnes and Noble, and like that's the number of people that would be spread all through like Star City.
Like Star City at any time, yeah. No, totally.
So like, you know, like people from like Virginia Beach, you have called it like, oh, we live in like a big city now, and like
right.
I've had this town called provincial by people before, Virginia Beach. You know, like people have called it like not a city at all. It's a 450,000 person city. It's like the 41st biggest city in America.
See, that's huge to me. Like Elko, Nevada, where I spent most of my high school years, and where I lived right after that when I was living on my own, 30,000 people in northern Nevada. So to me, I'm like, 300,000 people
that's
and
a
more.
Fucking
That's
lot,
fucking a lot. That's 100 times the amount? 10 times the amount?
But probably in like the same land area, because I'm sure that place is spread out as fuck.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, you saw what Twin Falls is like, right? Twin Falls is 40,000 people, 50.
Right.
So,
but it looks like it would be a lot more than that in terms of land size.
Right.
But like the buildings don't go more than like 2 stories, 3 stories ever.
I mean, this
Nothing
shit
even like this. Like
never.
The building we're standing in would be one of the taller buildings in Twin Falls.
No, totally. There's one on Main Street that's like 3 stories tall, and it's a flex. Because it's like where the politicians are in Twin Falls. 3 stories above you.
The people I have the easiest time talking to are black girls.
Yeah.
And, like, talking to guys is something that I know how to do because I grew up hanging out with guys. But, like, when I hang out with guys like you who I, like, would be friends with, basically, then it's like, I'm gonna act like kind of one of the guys in the way that girls do when they hang out with guys.
Like men does.
You know, white chicks are like a little too like white chick about everything. You know, like they like to pretend to be one of the guys, but deep down inside they're like resenting that they have to be one of the guys ever. And it's like I don't know, black girls are a little bit more understanding of like men in general because they're just culturally more close together, perhaps spend more time around each other. More densely knit angrier as well. I think
black women match the intensity of
maybe that's
white men.
Yeah.
And maybe black men take it a little far sometimes with peer-to-peer relationships and violence. But
I feel like I get to be in this odd position of having like I can be less angry because I'm white, but more angry because I'm trans. So, like, I can meet on that level where it's like...
Yeah.
You know...
Well, you should have to declare yourself trans-black as well.
That's the thing. So that's kind of what I'm coming to with this, is that you and I talk about that. We talk about, like, oh, yeah, like, we're, like, more black than... Like, we identify ourselves as black people in our own minds. But...
Just saying, if there's a race war...
If I, like... My curiosity is, like, if I say to a black person, like, oh, I see myself as trans-black...
Right.
Is that a compliment? An insult? Are you offended? Like...
There's a beautiful Donald Glover sketch on it in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
The Harrison kid.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
But it's like the opposite. It's a black kid who wants to be a white man.
Like an old white guy,
Yeah, he's like...
he's like a racist old white
I work
man.
at a Coca-Cola factory. And he's like just a black high school kid.
I don't consider myself to actually be black because I'm not actually black. And I know that, like, there's a reason that even like Logic, who is like half black but looks extremely white, gets so much shit for talking about like how difficult it is to be mixed. And even though I actually believe that he does struggle, because I've known guys who like, I've even known just black kids who act white and therefore are like ostracized and treated like they are white.
No, totally.
You know? So like, I believe that he really is struggling with something there, but at the same time, it's not the same thing black people are struggling
No,
with.
totally.
Of like literally being on site. Even if he was like one shade darker, he would have way more of a problem. You know, if I was like 1 or 2 shades darker, I might get a problem, but I'm like very white, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And the white privilege stuff, people don't want to talk about it, but it exists, and it's subconscious social stigma shit.
The thing that people with any privilege don't understand about having it is that it applies only in certain places. Like,
sure,
there's a reason that like also white people won't go to like the ghetto because they think they're going to be singled out for being white.
Right.
You know, and that is in a sense like you could say like, I'm not going to say it's a black privilege to be able to walk around the ghetto because it's not a privileged position to be in at all, but like if you were a black person in an all-white neighborhood, even if you were like in the same class as all of them, it's still gonna feel fucking weird to be like, oh, nobody here looks like me, and they all are gonna notice right away.
Right, a gay guy in a straight bar or vice versa, a straight guy in a gay club. Like, it's just always going to be disadvantageous to not be part of the core group that you're around.
Exactly.
If you find yourself in a minority position, it's going to be bad.
It was difficult to be one of the only 5 white kids at a black school, you know, and
Right.
not because I struggled to get along with the other kids, because I talked to kids all the time, but people just like didn't want to associate with me. So like, you are a weird fucking person. I don't want to be caught.
I spent 4 years
being
bouncing
friends
around
with,
from
you know?
different schools where people would, when I enrolled, like single me out and just start treating me like shit. And I'd have to get into fights to prove myself or this or that. Or, and it's like, just because I was like the white kid. Eventually, like, luckily I didn't move around that much in those years. It was like I spent 4 years in 3 different households during foster care. All 3 were black families. But the last year that I was there, I was like one household for a year and a half or something. And by the end of it, everybody there, they just considered me a black kid. You know, all I was listening to was whatever they were listening to. All I was watching was whatever they were watching. I ate what they were eating. And it was, you know, not the foster parents ever, but it was like the older kids. Like, there was a kid named Jermaine who was 4 years older than me, who just like fucking took me everywhere he was going. So like, if he had friends hanging out with at school, he'd be like, yeah, come on. And like, at first it was mostly to rib me and give me shit for being like the white kid. Like, it was totally spectacle sport. We were in Monticello, Arkansas. There's just such a low white percentage of population there. Kind of, if you can put up with it, people kind of forget after a while that you're different. And I mean, I think it's like that with anything, right? Familiarity. You get lots of famous black celebrities that are viewed almost as white people, like Childish Gambino.
I literally think that the reason that like gay marriage finally got legalized was just because there was so much gay TV in the 2000s.
Right.
Like, so when I was growing up in the 90s, like, I don't know, maybe it was different for adults, but for me as a kid at least, it was like the last thing anybody could possibly be was gay. It's like the worst, it's the only thing you didn't want to be.
That's so crazy for me to think of too, because like, I can't imagine it not being legal to get married to a dude.
It's like
who cares?
Like in the early 2000s, it was like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was the first like popular gay thing I remember being like mainstream. It's like they would just 5 gay dudes would give a straight guy a makeover or something. Or fix his life up or whatever. And then like around like Glee was when it was like it finally cracked through and it just started pouring out, and it was like, oh, now gay stuff is just popular, I guess, you know? And then like 2 years later it was legalized. As much as I always hate like all the tactics that like social justice warriors use or anybody trying to push an agenda, but I do know that a lot of it works in the end, where like the big push right now is like get black media like stars, like build black media empire basically, you know, like establish directors, actors, like brands, mythos, all based around black characters so that they can have you know, longevity and everything. Follow the Jay-Z method basically of building black empire, and I think that that's great that that's all happening. It seems like it's working, you know.
Better for me.
Yeah.
Better for me.
So we're just saying, yeah, when the race war happens, we're going on the dark side.
I mean, it's like there's a sense of community also that I've never gotten out of people that look like me. People that look like me think that everybody sucks, regardless of race, I think.
Yeah.
And then I've got like black nationalist friends who are like black supremacists who will tell me like, oh, I'm better than you because of my melanin and shit. And I'm like, well, that's dumb.
Right.
It's a culture thing. Identity is cultural. It's not biological. I think that's a big thing that people like me learn by being foster kids, is that whoever birthed you doesn't matter. The people who are like you can abandon you, and community is found in those who accept you for your differences.
Yeah.
That's like the blackest thing I can think of is being like, yo, he light skinned.
Yeah.
Like from fucking Hustle and Flow.
Yeah.
Like he ain't white, he light skinned.
I think
That's how people treated me.
I was listening to Lupe Fiasco talk about how he's like, he said at one point, I gave a similar speech to you, that like only like 10% of people are worth the shit at all.
Sure.
Only like half of those or less will you even like have the opportunity to work with because they like speak the same language of you as you or whatever. So like you only really have to worry about 5% of everybody, and like he's like, I can't even afford to be racist like with that few people. Like I can't be like, no, I don't work with white people. It's like, no, there's a lot of white people who are in that 5% of worth the shit. I want all of those people. I don't care who they are, just as long as they understand like what the world actually is. And he's big into that like get out of the matrix kind of mentality. I think we are also in that.
I find myself completely incapable of caring about like where you're from biologically or what your race is or any of that, just because of my separation from my identity.
Right.
Which is what people like usually call me out for. Like, oh, you just didn't like have white people around during your life. I'm like, yeah, no, I didn't. During my formative years, I was left to my own devices with people who you say are bad, who think you're bad.
I also had like,
dumb.
I had never quite realized how much of a black girl my mom was growing up as well, because my mom went to all inner city schools, so she only hung out with black girls basically, and like, she's sort of like when she's with me, she's intensely ghetto.
Right.
When she's with other people, like when she's with my dad, she's not. Because, like, my dad is not ghetto at all. He's like a white boy, California white boy, God, it's really funny because when I say it like that, it makes me feel like me and Ari are the same type of relationship of, like, white girl who acts black and California
white guy,
long hair and white. My dad was long haired at the time, but she is no longer allowed to say the N-word in the house because of him being yuppie, so she could only say it to me in text. So like,
that's funny. That's really weird.
And it's like it hurts her to not be able to say it. She's like, that's our word kind of like mentality,
Sure. See, I never felt a strong connection with any words because like. Growing up, nobody told me not to say it. The black kids called me.
Yeah.
I called, like,
What
and then as I got older, I met enough people who did care about it, where I developed the sort of opinion of like, I don't need to say it if it's going to hurt anyone that I care about. I'm not going to not say it because it would hurt people that don't like me. I don't fucking care about them at all.
Right.
It's the idea that, like, well, if there's one of my friends out there who feels uncomfortable about it, I'm not going to fucking say it, at least, like, not uncensored or something.
Yeah.
Because I don't need, like, a sound clip used against them.
Right, exactly.
It's like, oh, he said this about, your people. It's fucking retarded. Of course, anybody who knows me knows that, like, it's bullshit to think I'm a racist.
Right.
It's one of the funniest things that people call me online is racist.
I've never seen that one, but...
We've got like a Confederate hat and shit. Like, you've definitely seen people call me an alt-right reactionary.
I've seen
that
them
means
call
racist.
You that. Yeah, okay.
It all means racist.
Yeah, it does.
Alt-right means Nazi.
Yeah.
Like, reactionary means racist.
It's just funny for
when
even
people
Nazi
get
to mean racist because Jews were they considered a race? Like,
obviously.
Is it like it's just a religious practice, right? Like,
no, there is a race of
so is it just specifically
Judaism
Israeli
and Jewish?
Like,
I don't fucking know. I don't care about the Holocaust at all. I don't know anything about the Holocaust. I couldn't care less. I fucking don't care. So I don't care at all. It doesn't have anything to do with me.
It's like 80 fucking years ago.
Talk to me about slavery, and I still probably don't care, but
you will watch Django.
Culturally, I care way more about slavery than, like, shit that happened to a bunch of insular Europeans, right? Like, Germans attacking
I fucking love Israel. We're gonna go ahead and end that conversation.
I just like don't care about world issues.
Yeah.
I care about cultural issues. I think the point of this is that the culture that you're raised in is the culture that does define you. It has nothing to do with your skin. That's racist. It has nothing to do with your heritage, bloodline, because that can be disconnected from you. You can be removed from it. Lots of American black people have been removed from the cultural heritage of Africa by slavery.
Yeah.
They don't consider themselves Africans. That's stupid. I don't consider myself a European.
They make fun
that's
of
stupid.
Africans. Like
Lots
black
of
kids
black
make
kids
fun
I
of
know
Africans,
don't like Africans
a
at
lot.
all.
Like, I
Right,
remember like
just
reading about like even articles about it, like that like African kids like get treated the worst at the black schools because they're just like made
It's
fun of for being
otherism.
super dark.
It's all
They
otherism,
have,
you know. Like
African accents and stuff.
everybody is different than somebody, and
Right.
somebody out there is always gonna find some reason that like, well, I don't like you.
Well, that's why we try to collect the others. That's my
Yes.
That's what I consider the VOIDGAZERS to be, is basically the others.
The others.
You know. But that's too generic of a name. We have to be the VOIDGAZERS.
VOIDGAZERS.
All right. Well, that's a 23-minute clip.
Man, this garlic's tiny.
All right, I just watched you chop this
Cabbage!
so many times.
Currently chilling in a discotheque. If you imagine a disco, there's a disconnect. Man, I love that song.
It's really good.
Fuck, it's such a good song, I forgot what
So is cabbage.
Right.
And so is gyoza, which is what you're making.
Gyoza's great, that's what I'm making. I didn't forget what I was making, I forgot why I had opened the fridge. That was to grab this scallion or green onion. I'm honestly not sure if there's difference.
I don't know either.
A serrano pepper, garlic, and ginger's on top of the microwave. And all this is gonna go in a bowl and then into dumplings. I've never done this before, but it was recommended on the video I'm stealing this from. I'm gonna chop these one at a time because they're different sizes.
Thank you.
Yeah. God, I hate cutting things.
What flavor is it?
Ube.
Oh yeah, fucking ube is like the best flavor ever. We discovered it because this Filipino place had ube like rolls, I guess. It's just fucking massive hunks of ube in a roll. It was kind of like a mochi, honestly, but like I like it a lot more than taro.
berry? Ube's a purple yam.
Yeah, it's a yam.
Yeah. I had it in a cake at a birthday party when I was growing up. But it's pretty alright. You should eat ube. Oh, also, one time we were driving up to LA to see my uncle, and we were at like a fast food place that was named after a pig or something, and they had ube shakes, and I didn't know what that was, but it was great. I think they took cake that was ube cake and blended it into a shake.
I'm excited about this. Wait,
This is salt.
that's just salt?
Yeah, this is just regular salt.
There's a big hunk of fucking uncooked pork in there.
Yeah, it's got to be cooked first. And now, the only thing that makes it Asian food, MSG. The best seasoning, super seasoning. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't cause you health problems. Just eat it, use it in things. It tastes really good. We are not sponsored by MSG. I'm gonna mix it up. So can you get the fucking camera away from the raw meat? What are you...
You know the camera zooms in post, right? You'll have to hold it closer to the food, did
It
you?
won't look as good if you zoom in and post. What are you saying there? I'm always too hyphy to what?
Slurk like berserk.
Slurk like berserk?
Yeah.
What is slurk?
It means nothing. I just finished giving
Drink.
I've been trying to do that lately. I've been trying to add like some Aesop rock, some Earl Sweatshirt kind of vibes to my music, where sometimes I say
MF
shit that don't
Doom.
mean shit. Right.
MF Doom nonsense core, some Jabberwocky shit.
Yup.
Thanks.
How do you unseparate these?
They come apart.
Wow.
I think. I don't know. I've never used
They
them.
look so froze up. Maybe they've got papers between them. There's definitely going to be a knife action in opening this.
Maybe they need to defrost a bit. I don't know. We'll find out. Cooking is science, trial and error, something or other.
What's that sound? Cooking is like the best science art middle ground.
What is?
Cooking.
Cooking is the best science and art middle ground?
Yeah. It's like equal amounts of both. Because like it's science in that the results are very exact in terms of like how you get them. They're just apart. Beautiful.
Right.
Cool.
But like it's art in that the results is entirely in the eye of the
Wow.
beholder. Like
Oh, and it just kind of
like everybody has different tastes.
As you
basically.
Right, you can follow a formula to get to a food, but
Right.
not
But
everybody's
whether that
gonna
food
like
is
the
good
food.
or bad is like an art mindset
Right.
kind of thing. Like, you know,
This is
like,
kind of base.
like you can judge whether the food was cooked accurately to intention, but not whether it was good. You
Right.
know, which is also true of art, but not of science.
Kind of close the guy. Wow, I don't have one hand. Wow, no, that's too much meat for the guy. Maybe.
That's what she said.
Wow, it's very impressive that people can do this without getting shit on the wrappers.
They
Like,
probably have like a wet towel next to them the whole time to wipe their fingers on.
I think so. So maybe I just need like way less meat than I think I need.
Yeah, it is just a dumpling.
I'm an American, so that's closed at least. It's not closed well.
That looks correct. I would say it could probably have a little bit less in it, but it looks about right. It smells really good. It smells like gyoza, so I know you're doing it right.
It's also really hard to do this and keep it clean. Maybe they wash them? I don't know. They're fun to make. I cooked steak for dinner in this pan last night, and now it's acting as a lid to the pot stickers pan, which should have been a pot, but you know.
Well, what's under that lid? Show me.
What?
Well, I need to know the truth.
The truth? You can't handle the
The
truth.
truth is fucking glorious.
Yeah, they look pretty good. Let me show you.
It's greater than fiction.
And
this case.
they're almost done. Woo! Pot stickers. There's also sauce, which has green onion, and it's just Gyoza sauce from the store. It's premium. But you can make this with soy sauce and rice vinegar, and I think sugar as well. You should get Mr. Brown black coffee.
Oh yeah,
It's very good.
I am a big fan of the Mr. Brown vanilla as well.
They only had the black kind, so
Yeah, it was
But-
strange.
you know, as they say, once you go Mr. Brown black coffee, you never go Mr. Brown black coffee vanilla.
Back, either
What? No.
across.
Sideways.
Those look really well made.
I hope they stay that way. They're getting brown.
They look like they were made by
Fuck,
somebody
ow.
who's maybe got a little bit of experience by now.
No, this is actually my first time making these, cooking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're stirring them with such ferocity, like you got something to prove. Like,
You know, they're pot stickers, and I'm really concerned that they might actually
get
stick.
something to grab them with. It's like use chopsticks.
What?
Metal
No,
chopsticks
no,
right
I
in there.
Too much for
Metaru
me.
chapu. Metaru chapu. What about a fork?
No, that's still a lot. Okay.
I'm like afraid at the distance I'm at of the splash pad. He is filled with determination.
They shouldn't stick. They
They are called pot stickers.
Yeah, but they shouldn't stay stuck. They should come off of the sticking eventually. Ooh, first try dumplings. I didn't get as much of a skin as I wanted, but they were getting dangerously close to sticking. And some of them are they're like sticking to the plate. It's wild, yo.
So what is in this sauce exactly? It was just that.
Oh, it's just a bottled sauce and green onions.
Is that where the spicy comes from, or is that?
That's in
something-
here. I put a
Okay.
serrano pepper in here.
The spicy really just brings it all the way home.
I really like it.
I love gyoza in general, but I've never really had one with as much of a kick as this. And also, you've put more meat in these than any Japanese person probably ever would. But
I threw away 2 of the wrappers because they ripped, and then I still had like 2 or 3 left over, so I wasn't that far off.
I'll pretend that I haven't eaten 2 whole trays worth of these already.
Nope. What do you mean? No, they were all like this.
Here, film me.
This is the first one, and it's beautiful. More like Gyoza.
Ari's gonna try to use chopsticks. He's
I'm-
not confident.
I'm also not Asian.
That's perfect. You're not doing anything wrong.
I don't know. This feels sketchy as
I
fuck.
think the metal kind of like sticks to the pot stickers a little bit, sticks to the stuff, makes it easier. Those Korean chopsticks.
Pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking happy that you can do this now, because this is a nice thing to be able to just fucking stir up for lunch any day.
I stole this recipe from Ethan Tabowski or something.
Good job.
What's up? We're standing here in real nature in Arkansas.
By which we mean manufactured nature, because real nature is like not. There's not a lot of it. There's that.
That's the real nature.
That is the realest nature that you as a human are likely to experience.
Rain's not controlled yet, but it will be. Big rain will be a thing eventually. In Portland, when I was on tour, I noticed the most shocking thing about it was the whole city looks fake. And that's when I first clicked with what like the Parks and Rec department does. Outside of Portland, for the first 10 miles outside of it, going in and out, it looks beautiful, like postcard beautiful, but it wasn't like that before people moved there and had to attract tourists.
All the stuff, like, when you imagine what, like, outdoors looks like postcard
the outdoors.
it's
Shit, you've
almost
seen on the
always manufactured. Like,
documentaries,
if you
they
can see it
fake
from the
angles.
highway, if it, like, when you're on the highway, there's those fences that you see, like, maybe 40 feet out, you know, and, like, anything up to that point is good. Like, if there's a fence, like, if you're in Nevada and you see the fence, like, you know, over there, everything past that fence is actual nature, which is almost only really in the desert.
And
like,
usually it's not, right? Yeah. In the desert, there's desert, but that desert, there used to be more stuff there. BLM came in and flattened all of it, removed resources. What you've got in other places are farmlands. So if you're driving through a lot of places, that's not nature either. That's people's property.
Almost,
or
well, if
state
it's not
property.
the desert, it's probably someone's property. Yeah, like, if you're
back
seeing
here are
fields,
fake.
like, fields are for a purpose. Like, fields aren't just like a thing, basically.
It kind of sucks. Unless you're going way out in the middle of nowhere, finding like cabin-like retreats, and then going out into the nature like this, you're just not going to really experience what Lewis and Clark ever went through in this country. You're not gonna see anything like that.
There's very little of it. You gotta find the brush to go out into the brush. And it's all owned, like, by the government. You can't just, like, go out in the woods and make a spot without somebody, like, having a... I mean, you can, and they probably won't fuck with you, but, like, it won't be legal. They can fuck with you, they just probably won't. Because there is a guy who, like, claims to just be his own independent nation, and they just, like, well, it doesn't, like, there's no negative impact on the U.S. to let this man think that, so they just haven't done anything about it, but, like, you know.
I hope Digi's loud enough in this weather.
I have that, you know, I'm using a tone of voice that is like on a different channel from the rain, you know? It's like
So
cutting through that. No, you're good.
Do you have a favorite anime?
Me?
Yeah, you have a favorite anime?
I used to like, what's the name of that? Akira.
Oh, hell yeah,
we just watched Akira.
Samurai Champloo, and then there's another one that I like.
Can I sit with you for a minute?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you think about Akira? Because we just did it for our last podcast episode. We watched it and reviewed it. So, like, your review would go great. What did you think about it overall?
Well,
like, the message.
As far as it's been a long time since I've watched it. But what I like about the message, what I like about the way it's drawn is it's the lining.
Yeah.
And the coloring. It's not too strong. It's just subtle.
I like the palette a lot too.
Right. And I also like Sento Chihiro. Sento Chihiro is basically Spirited Away. That was a good storyline.
Okay.
It's very trippy.
Right.
It's very like the dreamlike sequence is what most of the content is based on.
Right.
I guess it's just to convey what happens when we overindulge and it becomes a nightmarish yet visceral experience. Visceral in terms of how we can live through our nightmare and then learn a lesson from it. And then the part that got me the most was how it mixed a little bit of quirky horror, like people turning into pigs while eating the ramen, and then just like a parallel universe, which is of course set in a very modern yet parallel universe of basically a parallel universe of rural Japan and modern Japan. So they were driving like a modern European car, and then they parked somewhere, and then the little girl got lost, and then the parents just completely everybody spread around.
I didn't even notice the detail of it being like a European car.
Yeah, it was an Audi. It was a red Audi.
So it's like they're going back into the past.
Yeah, it was a red Audi. Exactly. It was, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Eventually, we'd love to go to Japan. This is basically like our travel vlog podcast variety show, and it'll build up to that.
Plenty of tips as to where to go. And
I'd love to get your number.
Oh yeah, man! Because I lived in Nagoya and I studied design engineering.
That's amazing.
So I did some work with a professor who on a banana paper project.
Right.
My case study was banana paper project study. Yeah, no problem. What's your name?
Riley.
Riley. Nice to meet you, Daniel.
R-A-L-E-Y.
R-A-L-E-Y.
R-I-L-E-Y.
Bin?
Yeah. Mint.
Mint. Nice
like
to meet
the
you.
candy.
I like it.
Digi?
Digi. Mr. Digi, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Bird, like the animal.
Bird. Nice to meet you. I like that. You guys have this nice artsy vibe.
Thank you.
I'm digging it, man.
Yeah.
You guys would do good in Austin too. Austin is very quirky. I like it.
You've got to go down there.
I love
People
to
keep
draw.
telling us to.
There you go. I love to draw myself, so.
That's awesome.
Really?
She's a full-time artist. I'm a podcast producer for an LA-based show that makes $20K a month. It's like a big Patreon podcast. Famous YouTuber, and Bird's our cook.
Oh,
he's
man.
the best cook like ever. His dad grew up running 5-star restaurants in LA.
Oh,
so
man.
he's like our personal
Also,
chef.
you guys lived in California. You're out of California.
He did.
Up there.
Nice.
I'm from Arkansas, born there, but grew up in Nevada and then traveling. And then Digi.
Virginia.
Okay. So
Washington. We're all from all over.
Yeah.
It's a cool
Washington
team we
State.
got.
Yes.
Oh man, I'd love to go there. I'm from Haiti originally. I lived in Miami, and I used to go to a lot to Wynwood. Wynwood is a very artsy district. They have a lot of walls with, of course, a lot of murals, and it's basically pop graffiti art mixed with modern form of metaphysical art.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of it is blended with cartoony Japanese-inspired anime characters, video game-inspired characters as well, and then they blend that and then they fuse it with a lot of the New York style graffiti with European flair.
Right.
It's very well.
That sounds awesome.
Oh man, you have to go. And then the food scene is great there. There's a nice club scene, bar scene.
Big fan of that.
You are going to be. You won't want to leave.
Right. I can't wait to talk about it more with you.
Definitely. So you said Rayleigh?
Riley. R-I-L-E-Y. Hired him from a prop department.
You are joking me.
Yeah, Tom Mix is my great uncle. He was a pallbearer for Wyatt Earp.
Oh man. Oh, okay. I remember watching a bit of a spaghetti westerns like Sukiyaki Western Jungle.
Yeah.
That was I forgot the name of the actor, but I saw a little bit.
That.
Yeah.
Quentin
Western Jungle.
Tarantino was in it as an actor.
Oh,
in
interesting.
the Japanese.
Yeah, it's like a recall to spaghetti westerns.
Like the Sergio Leone stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's like almost a parody.
Yeah,
But
exactly. It's a little ridiculed, but because of the lighting, the acting is a little overly a little bit overkill. But it still harkens to the type of inspiration that the Japanese are a fan of American pop Western culture, especially the type of
You've
Western.
bugged me about it before because I'm always watching Westerns. So
Right. There you go.
that's awesome. I'm glad we came and said something
you see
to
that?
you.
That's serendipitous, man. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you later, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah,
We're
you
going to
guys
go
be
talk
safe.
to more people.
Happy Merry Christmas.
Yes,
You
Merry
too.
Christmas.
Happy New Year. Be safe.
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you.
I'll be in touch.
Take care.
Yep.
All right. Be safe.
Yep.
All right.
And that is why I'm the producer of The Dick Show. You can't do that. You can't do it. Hey, Bird, do you have a void thought?
Oh, all these lights, man. How?
How, like, How are they on? Do you think
That's just how.
people are, what, working on Christmas and left lights on? Or do you think they left lights on to look like they're working on Christmas, or what?
How?
Man salad?
Yeah.
Do you have any void thoughts for us?
Trees they spring out like out of this center like fractals. Trees and fractals.
Trees
And
what?
fractals.
Fractals.
Yeah.
That's what Yig Studio is named for, the fractal nature of trees. The world tree, the Yggdrasil, in Norse mythology.
Family
Mythology?
Yeah.
Family
the
soil.
Alright, skateboard.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
that does look fun.
Does anyone want to debate about anime?
Void thought. The camera adds 250 pounds. Not 10, not 20, not 50. Last episode of VOIDGAZERS, the first episode of VOIDGAZERS, I realized that sitting in that chair on our set back home, I look fat as hell. So I've got to stop being fat. Started eating less, started working out a little bit, started drinking a lot of water instead of, sodas and shit like that. I've always been a little bit overweight because I've done things like wrestling and football where that's encouraged. And because I've done sports on the other end of it when I was younger, like track and basketball, where it's encouraged to be as small as you can be. And so to fluctuate between those things isn't new to me. In 9th grade, 10th grade, I think I was like 340 pounds. My peakest point at any point was 8th grade, 360. That was insane. That was too much. That's like a 400-pound guy. I'm always going to have these fucking man tits about it, too, probably. But if I can tone back down to 180, I'll be happy. Earlier this year, my peak plumpness hit about 280. Right now, I'm about 235. So I'll be happy if I'm 180, 190 going into the next year. That's the goal. The void thought is that cameras reveal to you a degree of separation in which you should be functioning to maintain your appearance. If you look fat on camera, it means you're really fat in real life. If you look really skinny on camera, it probably means you're really skinny in real life. You need to adjust for that. You need to understand what the camera actually does add to your weight. And then it's a great way to keep yourself in check or something.
An audience is a funny thing to have because your audience often simultaneously wants you to be you who they want to exist or want to be, but also to be them, or at least to be on level with them. In order for me to do the things I do, I have to be in the right state of mind. And getting into that state of mind requires abnormal circumstances. The kinds of things I do, and even including anime analysis videos. If you know the content I do, you know that I've never done traditional content that is built out of the desire to make a show, as opposed to just the desire to express an opinion about something that is, inside of you. And regardless of if that is even valuable or is it worth funding the existence of someone like me for the product I put out to exist, and for me to make demands that my life has to be a certain way, it has to be different from normal people's lives because I need those unique circumstances to make these kinds of things. At what point does the audience sort of say, well, who are you, or well, what is this content that you need to be so special or whatever, and I don't know. There is no answer to that. But for me, it's I want to be able to do things the way that I've always been trying to do them, which is make what I want to make because I'm inspired to make it, because it's gratifying. It is fun in and of itself to make the kind of content I want to make. It's really difficult to make the audience understand my excitement over what I'm doing if they don't connect with it immediately on the basis of some kind of shared understanding, where the majority of my audience is anime fans. It's easy for them to understand why they're going to enjoy an anime video from me because they care about anime inherently. They don't inherently care about anything else I might have to talk about, and my excitement over it doesn't necessarily translate unless I can literally explain to them in terms that they can understand. And like, my audience being as it is, people who came to me for analytical content for the most part, they need analytical content to understand my other content that is not inherently appealing to them. I find myself always in this position of feeling like there's definitely an audience for everything that I want to do, but I have to find that audience individually every time, unless I want to literally have to mass convert everyone who follows me into being interested in the next thing I'm into. And like, I know how that goes. Like, I moved from pony to anime, and even doing the exact same type of content, still doing analytical content, I burned away the vast majority of my audience, you know, and had to build it back up basically from scratch as an anime YouTuber. If it wasn't for the fact that people don't usually unsubscribe from a channel, you know, like, I would have looked like I had shrunk massively, you know, but I didn't look that way because of the fact that, you know, I still had tons of subscribers even when my view counts plummeted. It's interesting to me that my views are healthier now than they were when I started doing anime content, but they're not as healthy as they were at the height of my anime content, obviously. And a big part of it is that my anime audience got to a size where when I boiled it down to just that essential element of people who will follow everything I do, it was just that much bigger than it was the first time. But I definitely think that I'm at a point where, like, if you're still paying me, if you're still keeping up with my content, you're definitely somebody who is just, like, really interested in me and my existence. And I want it to be that way because I want to be able to do all the things I'm interested in and bring those things to people. And, like, the older I get, the more I feel that, you know, young people consume media in a way that is to sort of reify their identity. They constantly need like a reinforcement to help them to understand themselves. You know, for me, like, when I was a teenager, I threw myself into watching cute girls doing cute things shows because I wanted to be a woman doing cute things and, like, not living the life I was living at all, you know? And I didn't really understand that in exactly those terms. It wasn't so clear-cut to me. But, like, it was very important to me. Like, my world was centered around this type of media to the point that I'm, like, defending it online and writing all this analysis about it and, like, caring all this much about this thing that now, you know, as an adult, I don't, like, feel any drive to need to watch those shows anymore. Maybe because I'm living a lifestyle that I'm satisfied with and don't feel the need to escape into anime, but also just because, like, I understand what the core value in watching those shows is, and, like, if I did need to watch them or need to feel that way, it's like a thing I can do as opposed to something that, like, I have to do, you know? And, like, the older I get, the more I appreciate that, like, the young people are very important to, you know, my audience because they're the people who are going to get the most out of what I say, and they're the people who I'm going to, like, reach the most deeply. But they're the least capable of actually keeping me alive. I don't have, like, a powerful support network of friends and, like, associates business-wise, you know? Like, I have lots of people who are in the same boat that I am, of being, like, independent creators who have other independent creator friends, but none of us really have industry ties. None of us have, like, that depth of connection that would allow you to continue to just exist in the industry when your cult of personality is, you know, no longer relevant. Ordinarily, people like me would be in a position where if we wanted to fall back from the limelight, we would go into a production role. That's not something that would be impossible for me, but I don't have connections. I'm not in that industry. There's no reason I would suddenly be, like, I would have to build up my reputation as a producer just as much as I had to build up my reputation as anything else, you know? Like, so for me, I look at it like, if I'm trying to maintain the idea that, like, my existence is sustained because I am, like, just worthwhile and cool and the stuff I provide is interesting and people want to see this kind of thing, then, like, I have to be accessible to young people and be able to, you know, have that same impact on them that I want to have. But, like, I also need to be relatable and have, like, adult friends and people around who, like, you know, who know what they're doing a little bit more and are trying to help me not because they're like, oh, I'm a huge fan of your work and I watch every video you make, but because they're like, I think that the impact you have on the world is positive, and I want you to be able to keep having that impact. And like, I think that I spent so much time being kind of like a internet asshole. It never should have happened, because anybody who knows me knows I'm like chill as fuck and basically like very easy to get along with and extremely passive. And like, it's weird that, you know, just because of the fact that the few times I did pop off, I popped off so fucking hard that like I gained this reputation of being like aggressive or hard to talk to or contact, or being like above it all, or being like, there was something somebody said to me one time where they were like, they just thought that I would be hard to impress, I think. And like, the reality is I'm impressed with anybody who has like the courage to even speak to me, because I wouldn't have the courage to speak to somebody, you know, like, especially if you're a younger person. Like, I wouldn't have reached out to anybody I admired or like, you know, sought that kind of guidance, and that's a huge mistake from me. So this is me now speaking to the young people once again. You know, do try, like, there are lots of people who are going to blow you off and not have time for you, but like, you know, in basically all matters of life, the best way to get results is to keep trying, you know, like blunt force until you find the thing that you are looking for. Like, if you're basing your whole identity off of like, there's one internet personality that I like super adore, and like, if they fucking didn't like me, it would crush my world. It's like, well, okay, that person became the way that they are by having lots of people that they draw from who, you know, inspired them, and lots of connections and people they can talk to. And so you're never going to be like them if you only listen to them. You need to get your own people to listen to, your own variety in your life. Yeah, cool. Now, if you're older and you heard that sagacious wisdom and you're nodding your head like, wow, I gotta show that quote to my kids. I'm not gonna show them any of the other part of the video with all the drug use, but I'm gonna clip that and show it to my children. Then pay me on Patreon or OnlyFans, whatever. Give me money.
Well, we're gonna do all the void thoughts, right? So you could do forgetting void thoughts.
Forgetting void thoughts. Vocalist named Mike Patton, who some of you have probably heard of. He's very influential, and he had talked one time about how he just has recording devices all over his house going at all times. So any time he has a musical idea, he can just shout it into the air, and then, you know, go back through and remember it. And the only reason I never set anything like this up is that A, it takes a lot of data. B, you'd have to put, you know, mics in literally like every room to make sure you always got it. And C, you'd have to go back through all the fucking shit you recorded. And I don't know if I actually believe that he, like, you know, goes back through everything and finds all that shit again. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like the strong ideas have to survive, you know? Like, there are songs I've had stuck in my head since I was 16 that I wrote. There are songs that I've had stuck in my head for like a couple years, you know? Like, there's some that, most of the songs I actually make to go from concept to completion almost instantly, but, you know, there are some that just sit in my mind forever. And so I kind of feel like if it's not strong enough to stay in your mind, it wasn't worth it in the first place, you know? It wouldn't have been worth writing down. So, like, any kind of shows I've done, I always have, you know, things that are similar to Void Thoughts. And sometimes they make it to video, sometimes they don't. I don't even necessarily know if it has to do with the quality of the ideas, or if it's just that I don't really think any ideas are
at 11. Park closes at 11?
Yeah. What time is it now?
Okay.
10 minutes. It closes in 10 minutes.
What time is it now?
Well,
It is
we've got 10 minutes.
It closes in 10 minutes.
It says 11 now.
Oh, then it's closed.
I have really long hair and it's really, really long. Like this bass intro, like the song. It's really long. I think it's like 5 minutes long, but my hair's about 18 inches. I don't know, it's pretty freaking long. Pretty freaking long.